Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. In the United States, President Donald Trump has finally assured that a new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. In a video message, Trump condemned the Capitol Hill violence. He said his focus now shifts to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition. He spoke as top Democrats called for him to be removed from office just 13 days before he is due to step down. China says the U.S. is playing with fire by sending a UN envoy to Taiwan next week. In a statement, China's mission to the UN said the U.S. will pay a heavy price for its provocations. It called on Washington to stop creating new difficulties for U.S.-Sino relations. In India, representatives of farmer unions and the centre meet today for the 8th round of talks over agricultural laws. Earlier, the protesting farmers took out tractor rallies to press their demand for rollback of the reforms. But the centre asserted it is ready to consider any proposal other than their repeal. In the dead of winter, farmers have camped against the laws on Delhi borders for over a month. In Ethiopia, the army says it has killed 4 core members of the TIGRAY People's Liberation Front and arrested 9 officials. In a statement, Army Chief Tesfaye Ayelu said the military and Ethiopian police conducted a joint operation. He said the killed officials include the TPLF spokesperson, its financial bureau head, and other high-ranking personnel. The U.S. has reported its highest coronavirus-related deaths in a single day with nearly 4,000 fatalities overnight. The nation's death toll has surpassed 365,000 with 21.5 million infections. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded more than 200,000 fatalities since the pandemic began with nearly 8 million cases. In Pakistan, the virus has claimed 48 lives and infected around 2,400 people in the past day. There are more than 10,500 fatalities across the country. Globally, there are 1.89 million deaths and over 88 million cases. And in cricket, England's women's cricket team will tour Pakistan in October this year for 2 T20s and 3 one-day internationals in Karachi. This will be their maiden visit to Pakistan. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. We're back with the news in more detail, and starting off in the United States, President Donald Trump has finally assured that a new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. In a video message, Trump condemned the Capitol Hill violence. He said his focus now shifts to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition. More in this report. Trump said he immediately deployed the National Guard to expel the intruders, but some media reports say he had hesitated, leaving his vice president to give the order. Trump spoke as top Democrats called for him to be removed from office just 13 days before his term is over.
My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections.
House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called for immediate impeachment proceedings if Vice President Mike Pence and Trump's cabinet refuse to take steps to remove Trump from power. Meanwhile, Capitol Police say one officer has died from injuries sustained during the riots. 4 others also died during the unrest. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund has announced his resignation over unpreparedness to deal with the invasion. And moving on, China says the U.S. is playing with fire by sending a UN envoy to Taiwan next week. In a statement, China's mission to the UN said the U.S. will pay a heavy price for its provocations. It said the Taiwan question concerns China's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and core interests. The UN mission said Beijing opposes any forms of official contacts between Washington and Taipei. Strongly opposing the visit, Beijing called on Washington to stop creating new difficulties for U.S.-Sino relations. The two are at odds over a range of issues, including the COVID-19 pandemic, Hong Kong, and the South China Sea. In India, representatives of farmer unions and the center meet today for the 8th round of talks over agricultural laws. The talks will be held between a ministerial committee and representatives of farm organizations. Earlier, tens of thousands of protesting farmers took out tractor rallies to press their demand for rollback of the reforms. But the center asserted it is ready to consider any proposal other than their repeal. With 7 rounds of failed talks, the farmers have been camping against the laws on Delhi borders for over a month. And in Ethiopia, the army says it has killed 4 core members of the Tigray People's Liberation Front and arrested 9 officials. In a statement, Army Chief Tesfaye Ayyalu said the military and Ethiopian police conducted a joint operation. He said the killed officials include the TPLF spokesperson, its financial bureau head, and other high-ranking personnel. Meanwhile, the detained persons include the former envoy to Sudan and the Tigray State Council's speaker. However, Ayyalu did not disclose when and where the operation took place. Thousands were killed after Addis Ababa launched a military offensive against the Tigray rebels last year. And the U.S. has reported its highest coronavirus-related deaths in a single day, with nearly 4,000 fatalities overnight. The nation's toll has surpassed 365,000, with 21.5 million infections. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded more than 200,000 fatalities since the pandemic began, with nearly 8 million cases. Globally, there are 1.89 million deaths and over 88 million cases. More on the pandemic in the following report.
With passing time and mounting deaths, complexities of the coronavirus pile up. A new study by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has found that more than half of the infections are transmitted by asymptomatic people. As U.S. recorded its deadliest day of the pandemic so far, experts say the country has essentially lost its battle against the virus. Over in the South, Colombia's capital, Bogota, is entering a strict quarantine due to rising infections and suspicion that the new variant is circulating in the city. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says developing states can start receiving vaccines as soon as this month.
We need about $7 billion in order to deliver enough vaccine to these countries through the end of 2021. And the facility has already raised about $6 billion of the $7 billion. So the facility has access to over 2 billion doses of vaccine. And we will start to deliver those vaccines probably by the end of January. And if not, then certainly by early February and mid-February. So
the organization's European branch says the new variant called B117 is currently present in 22 Euro states. UK PM Boris Johnson says almost 1.5 million people have been vaccinated as he vows to inoculate the most vulnerable people by mid-February. France says it will keep restrictions imposed for an indefinite period as the country prepares for its vaccination program. Meanwhile, Spain has now become the 4th Western European state to pass 2 million COVID-19 cases.
The total of confirmed cases reported by the autonomous regions via the monitoring system passes today 2 million cases. Since last Tuesday, the 5th, 42,360 new cases. Around 6,500 cases were reported yesterday, as you can see in the charts, and the rest are from the previous days. The cumulative cases per 100,000 people in the last 14 days in Spain are 321. As you can see, it has grown since our last report on Tuesday.
As Japan battles a severe third wave, the Prime Minister has declared a state of emergency in the capital, Tokyo. Meanwhile, China restricted people in Hebei province from leaving the city. Over in Australia, Queensland has enforced a 3-day lockdown after a hotel worker tested positive for the more contagious new strain.
Whereas in Pakistan, 48 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 10,558. The health ministry reported 2,435 new infections overnight. There are more than 33,000 active cases in the country at the moment. Out of over 497,000 countrywide cases, more than 453,000 people have recovered. The ministry said nearly 223,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province. Punjab has reported more than 143,000 cases. And in the capital, Islamabad, over 38,000 have been infected so far. Moving on, Bahrain has conferred its top military award on Pakistan's Army Chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa. Bajwa received the Order of Bahrain from Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad during his visit to the country. Bahraini state media said Bajwa made significant contributions to defense cooperation between Manama and Islamabad. Crown Prince Salman lauded the strength of the ties between both countries and the role they play in promoting regional security and stability. The two discussed bilateral ties and reviewed regional and international developments of mutual interest. Now, the Human Rights Watch has urged Libya's UN-backed government to launch a probe into the missing persons in Tarhuna. Hundreds of people have been reported missing in the town where mass graves have been unearthed. The Human Rights Watch said over 300 residents went missing after the local militia took control of the town. It said hundreds of people have been abducted or reported missing during the last 6 years. The rights group urged foreign governments to provide forensic experts to help with the government's probe. The Libyan government has repeatedly called to the UN to demand an international investigation into the mass graves. And we'll be back with more news after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Canada has rejected Iran's offer of $150,000 for the families of victims of a Ukrainian airliner shot down a year ago. Special Advisor Ralph Goodale said Iran has no right to decide the compensation to the 176 passengers. He said the reparations can only be agreed at special talks between Iran and the 5 nations whose citizens died. Goodale added that damages are more than just compensation, and Tehran has great responsibilities for justice, transparency, and accountability. Tehran shot down a Ukrainian plane on January 8th last year, misidentifying it as an incoming U.S. attack. The crash killed 55 Canadian citizens, 30 permanent residents, and passengers from the Ukraine, UK, Afghanistan, and Sweden. Now, in the United States, airplane manufacturer Boeing has agreed to pay more than $2.5 billion to settle criminal charges related to the 737 MAX scandal. In a statement, the Justice Department said the company admitted to 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. It will face no further charges from the U.S. Department of Justice. Acting Assistant Attorney General David Byrne said Boeing chose the path of profit over candor by concealing information. The company will pay $500 million to crash victim beneficiaries. And Facebook and Instagram will bar U.S. President Donald Trump from posting until the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. The move comes after the president's supporters violently stormed Capitol Hill in Washington. In a statement, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg described the risk of allowing Trump to use the platform too great. He said that the president had used platforms to incite violent insurrection against a democratically elected government. Zuckerberg says Trump's account could remain locked indefinitely, while Twitter has allowed Trump to tweet again after suspending his account for 12 hours. And Tesla and SpaceX entrepreneur Elon Musk has become the world's richest person, with his net worth crossing $185 billion. Musk was pushed into the top slot after his electric car company's share price skyrocketed. He takes the top spot from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who had held it since 2017. Tesla has surged in value this year and hit a market value of $700 billion for the first time. Musk's fortunes have been buoyed by the U.S. politics, where the Democrats will now have control of the Senate in the forthcoming session. And cheerleaders dance and cheer on commuters outside a rail station in the Japanese capital of Tokyo. The cheerleaders lift commuters' spirits amid the surging cases of COVID-19. More in this report. Japan has set a new record by reporting nearly 6,000 cases in one day as the government prepares to declare a state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures. A group of cheerleaders perform outside a rail station in the capital city. Some people stop to capture the performance on their smartphones, while others watch as they leave for work early in the morning.
Especially now, the spread of coronavirus isn't stopping. People have lost their jobs and have had to give up on many things. They can't do what they want to do or don't know what they should do. I think this is a period where people are really suffering a lot. During this time, if we had cried, people would feel depressed too. So with courage, we want to step forward and deliver a smile to cheer people up. We are doing this with the hope that people can feel even a little bit better.
Head cheerleader Kumi Asazuma says the group has been performing for more than 10 years to help energize morning commuters, but their mission has taken on new meaning ever since the pandemic started. She says the group will perform remotely during the upcoming state of emergency.
We probably will do the performance remotely by using computers or smartphones to broadcast from home separately and delivering our good vibes via social media.
Though still less seriously affected by the pandemic than many countries around the world, Japan has seen a huge spike in daily cases. The capital, Tokyo alone, reported more than 2,000 COVID-19 cases yesterday. On to business. Shares in Asia Pacific have gained big after stocks on Wall Street cruised to new record highs overnight. South Korea's Kospi led gains among major regional markets as it jumped 4%. Japan's Nikkei 225 and the Topix index have risen nearly 2.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index has also gained over 1%, while Australia's ASX 200 has added over 0.5%. But mainland Chinese shares are trading marginally lower, with both the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Component shedding. It's now time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.